All right, we got a winner here. This is going to be an hour long audio. I may not play the whole thing, but it's Laurent Guyenot. I've heard the name before. Fringe conspiracy theorist, no planer. He was invited to speak on Bonnie Faulkner's Guns and Butter radio show. And yeah, here we go.
I'm Bonnie Faulkner. Today on Guns and Butter, Laurent Guyenot. Today's show, 9/11, the planes and the hijackers.
Here we go.
Laurent Guyenot is an author, researcher, and journalist. His current research focuses on the religious and civilizational backgrounds of Zionist geostrategy. His books include Jesus and John the Baptist, historical and
There's always a direct correlation between people who espouse fringe conspiracy theories and religion. And the more religious they are, the more outlandish the fringe conspiracies get. There's a direct correlation.
inquiry into a legendary encounter, fairy death, an anthropology of medieval fantasy, and translated into English, JFK to 9/11, 50 Years of Deep State, and From Yahweh to Zion, Jealous God, Chosen People, Promised Land, Clash of Civilizations. Today we discuss his latest article, The 9/11 Double-Cross Theory, Pentagon Inside Job, World Trade Center Israeli Job, that analyzes the September 11th attacks as two separate but related events with emphasis on the planes and the hijackers.
Can't wait. Can't wait for this one.
Laurent Guyenot, welcome back.
Well, thank you, Bonnie, for having me back.
When we last spoke about your whodunit article, the 9/11 double-cross theory, Pentagon Inside Job, World Trade Center Israeli Job, you talked about some of the main differences between the attack on the Pentagon and the attack on the New York City Twin Towers on September 11th. We also covered your analysis of what you view as two competing groups within the American deep state, traditional American imperialism as opposed to neoconservative Zionism, their differences and similarities, and a few of the prominent players. You also covered the special roles played by Donald Rumsfeld and Dick Cheney. As well, you talked about a biblical mindset characteristic of Israeli leadership. So that's just to recap what we talked about in our first show. Could you talk about the planes on 9/11? What is your take on the flights that have occupied so much of the alternative research into September 11th?
Well, that's a very complicated issue, and
It's only complicated when you have to now give an alternative theory to the evidence, right? And you have to make it sound rational. And if it doesn't, to hell with it, at least it goes against the narrative that planes were actually hijacked and crashed. And this is the problem within many in the truth movement now, currently. It wasn't like this before, but currently now, unfortunately, what's left of it is that you have people that basically adhere and espouse all these fringe conspiracies that basically go against the evidence of what took place on 9/11. And this is the reason why nobody takes the truth movement seriously anymore, because of people like
actually, there are about 1,000 comments under my latest article that you mentioned, and most of these comments are, debating on about the plane issue. How many planes? 1, 2, 3, 4, or 0 planes, and that's really an intense debate and very aggressive.
It's not intense. It's basically, people just yelling and screaming on viral media. I block these people. No plaintiffs, block. Judy Wooders, block. Automatic block. Don't argue with them. I don't yell at these people. They are really fanatical, right? I'll only talk to people who really do have honest questions about 9/11 itself. Now, I came from that background of no planes, no hijackers. And basically, I played devil's advocate and found out, hey, wait a minute, I was wrong about my previous held beliefs. And I made the adjustments. And, everybody in the skeptic community of 9/11 basically came out of the fringe mindsets themselves, but very few make it out of there.
sometimes because some people believe that the no planners, people who believe there were no planes at all,
No
are
planners.
just trying to pollute the debate. So it's really an intense.
Yeah, they actually do pollute the debate because they basically just make up stuff to, like I said, give an alternative argument against what they think is the official narrative, which is planes were hijacked in actual planes.
And complicated issue, and I must admit, I don't think anybody has got the final explanation.
Well, actually, we do have some answers to some questions. And in regards to planes being hijacked, yeah, that's evident. It's definitive. There is no counter argument. Planes were hijacked. They crashed into the World Trade Center, Pentagon, Shanksville. The people who were at these sites in the vicinity of these areas saw a commercial plane crash at those sites. The physical debris of the planes that were found at all three sites were from the planes that were hijacked. The analytical data, the ATC recordings, the radar satellite, the flight data recorder that was recovered at Shanksville and the Pentagon match up with the hijacked flights. So now what you have to do is, Laurent Guyenot, is basically take all of that and somehow make it to where all of this information is either manipulated or just flat out fake. It doesn't exist. And now you have to involve thousands of people involved because many people that were involved with search and rescue, many people who worked at the airline industry, the people on the planes, all these people, basically all the people on the planes, either they don't exist or they died somewhere else. And you can't prove that because you have no evidence for this. And the people at the airports, the people involved with search and rescue, the residents in these towns who saw the plane, all these people had to be either lying or in on it. And now you have to show evidence for that. So in other words, you're not going forward, you're actually going backward with each claim that you make. And since you have no evidence, you're stuck there, except for accepting the evidence.
Complete theory that explains all the facts. But to me, as I wrote in my final comment, on this article, after listening to every side, I came to the conclusion that there are two major arguments, or one major argument for each side. There are some people who claim that. Well, first, before I talk about the arguments, let's talk about the different planes.
First of all, you made a big mistake. You said that you listened to all the arguments instead of going to the evidence, right? You didn't ask people at the Pentagon, Shanksville, what they saw, right? Or you didn't read their testimonies online. And if you did, you basically dismissed them and you went straight to the sources who proposed these outlandish theories, and you gave them precedence over the people who actually saw the planes for themselves. So that's what you did. You rank, it was called rank foul. That's because you're a no planer, right? So you basically went into 9/11 with a preconceived mindset of I'm going to disprove the best I can the evidence, and if I have to make up stuff, I will, and if I have to say outlandish things, I will. Because at least it goes against that narrative. And that narrative can't be believed for whatever reason. That means you're no longer a truther, you're no longer a researcher, you're a hobbyist. That's what I call you people.
Because there is only one plane that is really problematic, that is really difficult to pinpoint. Because, everybody knows there were 4 planes involved, supposedly. And, if you look at Shanksville in Pennsylvania, pretty much everybody agrees there were no planes there.
Now, who's everybody, right? Who's everybody? In the fringe community? Sure. To the residents? No.
Nobody, the mayor of Shanksville, I think his name is Ernie Stull, I think, Stull. And in my film, we have him explain, when he came to the site and his brother-in-law came to the site, they saw absolutely nothing, just a hole.
No.
He said the plane had completely vanished. Mm-hmm. Poof, he said, So anyway, in Shanksville, pretty
And that,
But pretty much everybody agrees there were no planes.
oh, in Shanksville, everybody agrees. Let's test that theory, right? So I took a moment to put aside some articles, right? So I have some articles ready. I didn't get everything, but I got enough. And what I did was I basically I Googled Shanksville eyewitnesses, right? Flight 93 eyewitnesses. And wouldn't you believe it? I came across an article called Eyewitness Reflects on Flight 93 Crash, right? So let's read it together. When the plane came through here, I could see the wingtips were vertical, Eric Peterson said in 2002. I could see the roof of the plane and the tops of the wings. I only took a couple of seconds to get from there. It only took a couple of seconds to get from there, from over to there. I mean, it was probably 2 seconds at the very most. People want to come see other people's tragedy. It's a shame, but that's the way it is. I came to grow with it, I guess, grow with the 10 years. I just came to accept what's going on. There's nothing to change it. Nevin Lambert can't change that he was the last person to see Flight 93 airborne going inverted as it drove to the destruction. It was going upside down and all at once. It made the 45-degree angle, went right down where the big tree is, right where my finger is pointing, he said in 2002. And, I could go on and on. I could get you far more articles of residents in Somerset County in Shanksville that saw the plane. So, this is why, I can't believe people like you, because you don't do your due diligence. You don't do honest research. You only look at stuff that caters to your worldview, right? Because if you actually were an honest researcher, you actually would look for articles like this and say, hey, wait a minute, maybe I was wrong. Or, basically you could just make up and say, oh, these people are lying. But yeah, there's your problem right there. That residents of Shanksville actually saw the plane and the plane crash.
In the Pentagon, there's not even one picture that resembles a plane, and there's no debris. There's
plenty of debris. I got plenty of pictures of debris to show you. But why waste my time? Because I know exactly the type of person you are. And regarding let's go to that. Why not? I mean, why don't we go to the eyewitnesses? I mean, why wouldn't you go? Why would I interview someone like you, for example? If I'm an investigator, I'm looking at a crime, why would I go to you, Laurent Guyenot? Right? Because you weren't there. So who cares what you have to say? Right? I don't care what some no-planer thinks. I want to hear from actual eyewitnesses. That's what I want to do. Right? So I'm going to play you, just for you, I'm going to play you a video. That's if you're seeing this video. So I'm going to play a video just for you of eyewitnesses to the Pentagon.
Airline 757, and it came in and hit the heliport.
As it was coming in, and I watched it come right in. And
what kind of plane was it?
American Airlines. It came streaking down and hit.
There, dude, right where that smoke's coming out. I was in my car. Yeah, a big-ass plane landed into the Pentagon.
Off to the left-hand side was a commercial plane that came in and was coming too fast and too low. And the next thing we saw was it go down below the side of the road, and we just saw the fire.
Saw a large airliner-sized plane, roughly a 767-size airliner, very deep descent, approaching the Pentagon.
I saw a plane going down, big plane, commercial liner type, going down.
I mean, I got more. In fact, I have a playlist dedicated to Pentagon eyewitnesses, right? That's what I have. And it's made for people like you, because you espouse no planes and no hijacks.
Very small debris, so most people would agree, that it could not be a Boeing.
No, most people in the fringe community would agree, not people who were there, because the people who were there saw the plane. So.
Any kind of commercial jet plane, in any case. So there might be a small drone or something. If you listen to the conference by Barbara Honegger.
Oh, there's your problem right there, Barbara Honegger. I mean, right there is your problem. That's one of your problems. You got a lot of problems, but that's one of your problems. Listening to her, she's a no planer, no hijacker. Somebody who doesn't think that planes were hijacked. Oh no, wait a minute. I'm sorry. She does believe that planes were hijacked, but they were swapped in midair and landed at some airport where they were forced to make phone calls and then shot. And then the planes that replaced the hijacked planes crashed into the Pentagon, but not the Pentagon crashed into heliport, according to Bob Honegger. I mean, they just make stuff up. They just make it up as they go along. So
she mentions some facts which seems to point to the presence of a drone. Okay, but then there are two planes that crashed into the Twin Towers. That's the more complicated issue. One plane crashed into the North Tower, and that plane has been filmed by only one camera. There's only one footage.
Oh, that's where you're wrong. There are actually three camera videos. I have them on my hard drive. I have three different shots. One from, I think there was a Brooklyn Bridge or George Washington Bridge. There's actually one bridge view, and it you just barely see the plane hitting the North Tower, the Nordette brother video. And there's another video that's shot on street level, and I have uploaded. So there's actually three.
Of the crash itself, and that's the footage filmed by the Naudet brothers. They are French. They happen to be there making a film about firefighters in New York, and they just by some miracle caught the crash. There are many reasons to suspect that this film is not genuine, is not original.
See, now this guy goes a little bit further now. So now he's somebody who actually thinks all the videos showing a plane are fake, right? So the planes are fake, the video's fake, the people on board the planes, they're not real, and maybe even the people who saw the plane. Let's see.
And one reason is the Naudet brothers themselves are kind of strange, mysterious characters.
No, they're really not. They're out in the public. I mean, they're not mysterious at all. You can look up their LinkedIn profiles.
They have received multiple awards after they have made but their origin, they don't look like brothers at all to start with, but anyway.
Right. When you already believe in absurdities, there is no limit, right? You can believe whatever you want. That's the thing about belief, is that there's no limit, there's no cap.
The main focus of the debate is about the second plane that hit the South Tower, because thousands or maybe tens of thousands of people in New York, we assume were watching the Twin Towers at that time and saw the plane hit the South Tower. Okay. So let's talk about this plane now, and then maybe we have to talk about the commercial planes and the passenger list, and did they really take off, and what kind of plane they were. But let's for the moment forget about that issue and just focus on the fact that a plane, whatever plane that was, crashed into the South Tower or not. Okay, so some people said, of course, a plane crashed into the South Tower. Tens of thousands of people saw it. And
that wouldn't be some. That would be most. Most.
Of course, you can ask them, well, can you name one person who saw it?
Yes, I can, actually. I can name two people personally that saw it.
And then it becomes a little bit complicated.
Because I live in New York, unlike you.
And then if you search on the internet, you can find a few people who said they saw the plane.
Well, you can actually see thousands of people who saw the plane. In fact, there are literally, I think, over 75 amateur videos that were taken of that plane hitting the South Tower.
But some of those testimonies are not totally convincing.
Well, they're not convincing to you. You're a no plane, of course. Everyone's a liar, right? Everybody who is in opposition to your narrative is a liar or an agent, or doesn't exist. So it's either one.
And some, maybe they are, or they.
I mean, really, is this rational to you? Does this sound rational to you? And if it does, how does it make it rational? Just because he's saying it and you agree with it? There's something called the scientific method. If he's claiming that the planes are fake and that all the video is manipulated, now you have to prove that every single video is manipulated. Because if you're just going to say, well, I don't trust the government, I don't trust anybody who goes with the government narrative, well, I don't care about what you feel. I only care about what you know. What do you know? Do you have information that provides evidence for your statements? Because if you're just going to whitewash everything as being false or manipulated, well, that's not telling me anything. If you go to court, you basically say, hey, listen, all these videos that are faked showing a plane hitting the World Trade Center. Well, the next question is from the court is basically the judge is saying, all right, well, let's hear your argument. And if your argument is saying, well, I just don't believe it, well, guess what? You're going to be hit with a frivolous lawsuit. That's what's going to happen to you.
There's no special reason to question them. So this is always what people bring against those who claim there were no planes. Many people must have seen them. But it's kind of strange, and if you study all these testimonies, first you have testimonies of people like the famous Mark Walsh, who on Fox News, appeared. He's a Fox freelancer, and he declared, "I saw the plane smash into the tower and then explode through the other side, and then I witnessed both towers collapse due to structural failures because the fire was too intense." And he used these exact words that sound exactly like.
Yeah, Mark Walsh actually lives near the World Trade Center, actually. And he actually was there to see the South Tower get hit by a plane. And he was interviewed by Fox. And yes, he's a freelance journalist.
What the Nix report would say, structural failures, and he used this kind of term. So this kind of guy is most people would accept he's like a crisis actor.
He can't be a crisis actor if you know who he is. Duh.
Okay, so already we have a question: why would they need people, crisis actors, to say they saw the plane?
Now imagine if you're this guy. Everybody who saw the plane could be a crisis actor. Imagine all of tens of thousands of people in descending on Manhattan at this time. People running away from the first attack. All the first responders, he's calling crisis actors. That's picked up human remains and plane debris. Either they're crisis actors or they're in on it, which one, or they're lying. There is no other alternative. You can't take people like this serious. You really can't, because basically his position is so untenable, it's impossible.
The tower, if they had enough genuine witnesses to say. And then you have some people who say, well, they didn't see a plane. Many people said they didn't see the.
That's not true. The people who didn't see the plane were in position that didn't see the plane.
They think the towers just exploded. Some say they heard a plane, but they didn't see it. So it gets.
Right, because the plane was going over 500 miles an hour. By the time they looked up, it crashed. So that's true.
It's really complicated.
No, it's not. It's really not. It's really not. You're making it complicated, right? Because you have to make sense of the unsensible, and you just can't do it. You're not prepared. You're ill-prepared. If this was actually a debate between me and you, it's over in 5 minutes. It's over in 5 minutes, right? Because a debate, you need information, evidence, sources for your information. You don't have it. You're just making stuff up as it goes along.
But I think, so many people would insist that, for example, Kevin Barrett said he knows many people who said they saw the second plane. So I feel I have to assume that's true. I have to assume many people saw the plane. But on the other hand, what convinced me that the plane that we see on the footage of the crash on the second tower, all of them cannot be real.
See, right there. So now he can't accept the fact that planes were hijacked and they crashed into the World Trade Center. Now he's saying that not only are the planes fake, but the footage is fake, right? So like I said before, you can't take people like this serious. You just, at this point, if there was a real block button in real life, he would be on it. but unfortunately, it's not.
There are basically four footage where you see the plane entering the towers. There are, many other videos where you see the plane coming to the towers, but you don't see the crash itself.
Wrong. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to play you a video I pulled out, and what I'm going to do is show you a video of the Flight 175 crashing into the South Tower. And basically, when you see it for yourself, and when you basically, I don't know what else to say other than, like, what would it take to persuade this guy into knowing the plane crashed into the World Trade Center? If video's not going to do it, if eyewitness testimony is not going to do it, what is going to do it? Well, nothing, obviously. So here's video of Flight 175. There you go, crashed right into the. So let's rewind that a little bit. Right there. So there's the plane. He's saying this is fake. This was superimposed on the film. In other words, there was no plane in this video. He's saying that this was superimposed in video, which, by the way, that technology didn't exist in 2001. The plane didn't disappear. Look, it exploded on impact. And that explosion went straight throughout the other side. So he's saying that when the plane hit here, the wings should have fell off and fell to the ground, not knowing that the plane is going 500 miles an hour, weighing over 80,000 pounds, because that's how much jet fuel's on there, approximately 80,000 pounds, not to mention the plane's components, which is adding more weight to the plane. And need I remind you what E equals MC squared means? Okay. So there you have it. See, it exploded. I have literally over 70 different videos showing the same thing.
You don't see the plane penetrating the tower. There are only.
We actually did. We actually did. In this video, the plane did penetrate. And it's not the plane that penetrated. It's the explosion behind it. The explosion of the jet fuel. That's why the hijackers picked East to West Coast flights, because they would be fully loaded, because they wanted the plane to be a bomb. And it was. The plane was a bomb at that point. There's 11,000 gallons of fuel, which translate to 78,000 pounds approximately. Not to mention what an empty 757-222 bus series weighs. I don't know how much it weighs without the jet fuel, but that's a lot. Not light. It's not a light object. Yes, it's made out of aluminum, but not in like a tin can.
To my knowledge, only four. And those four footage are one is by a certain Azer Kani, another one is by Evan Fairbanks, and then another one by a Canadian guy, Courcheux, I forgot his name exactly, and then there's a fourth one. And on all of them, you see the plane just penetrating the tower without even decelerating. You can measure the speed. The plane doesn't slow down at all.
Right, because that wasn't the intention. The intention was to crash the plane at the highest speeds possible it can go, fully loaded. That was the objection. That was the plan all along.
And it just goes right into the tower.
Right.
And if you look very closely, you see even the wings are not damaged at all. They
actually disintegrated on impact due to the explosion. Disintegrate. because of the force and the speed it was going. See, unlike other planes where they were, they're trying to safely land and not hit a building, they're dumping the fuel, they're trying to land. That's not the case on September 11, 2001.
They just enter into the tower. And then as soon as the plane is basically completely inside the tower without having...
The plane isn't in the tower. It's not the plane anymore. It's the slurry of the plane, what's left of it, which is going through a fireball on the other side, liquefying the plane straight through. That's what happened. Now, on, I think it's Wiley Street, Church Street, they found part of the engine of Flight 175. There's famous pictures and videos of that. Just Google Flight 175 engine. Did you see it?
Had any damage without any parts being smashed, or bumping against the tower or whatever.
You saw it for yourself in the video I provided. Plane is basically destroyed in an instant, half a second.
Then you have this huge explosion, and after the explosion and all the dust is out, you see this big hole, which some people call they refer to this cartoon. It escapes my, well, never mind.
Yeah, if you're a no-planer, you basically have a very simple view of life. So they call it like a cartoon cutout hole of a plane, right? Because the bombs, according to them, the bombs that exploded in the World Trade Center, and everybody who saw the plane saw a hologram, right? And instead, an explosion happened, and it just so happened to make a shape of a plane. And I'm the show.
It looks like cartoon physics. People speak about cartoon
Oh, yeah,
physics
cartoon.
because if you study the structure of the Twin Towers and you study the structure, what a plane is made of, it doesn't matter what kind of...
Yeah, you don't even understand simple physics. So let me show you something. Let me outline something. Heavy plane, fully fueled, 530 miles an hour, 78,000 pounds of fuel, crashing into a building at a high rate of speed. It's no longer a plane. It's actually a gigantic mass of fire, melted aluminum, and raging, exploding jet fuel. Highly flammable. Going straight out the other side. That's what it was at that point. It wasn't a plane anymore. As soon as it hit the building, the back of the plane became the front of the plane in less than half a second. That's why there's no whole bodies in Shanksville or Pentagon. You're not going to find a body or anything resembling a plane.
Plane, most planes are made of aluminum. The body is supposed to be very light, and in order to be quite light, of course, military planes are maybe a little bit different, but even a military plane could not, in any case, penetrate completely into the tower, and especially the wings. The wings should just, bounce against the tower. And
imagine believing that. The wings should just bounce right off. Like a rubber band. Boing. I mean, talk about cartoon physics. Wow, this is a grown man saying this. It makes it more shocking. I shouldn't be at this point. I've heard it all before. But imagine a grown person at his age, and I think he's in his late 50s, early 60s. I'm 52. Imagine trying to describe this, to high school students. Well, they'll laugh at you.
And fall to the ground. So that's the main argument of the so-called no-planners, of which I am a part. I feel these pictures...
We already know. You already know. We know you're a no-planner.
Be real. So these planes that we see entering the tower cannot be real.
Well, yes, Laurent, the video videos are fake, right?
Yeah, I didn't know
Exactly.
Bonnie Faulkner was a no-planer. I didn't know that until this audio. I know who Bonnie Faulkner is. I've heard of Guns and Butters before. I didn't know she was a full-on CGI fake planer, fake height, nothing. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that's the deal.
If I'm the host, I'm like, all right, hey, Lawrence, my God, what's your evidence for this? It's the reason why she's not interfering with this, because
Dilemma. What do we do from there? If the planes are fake, then how is it possible that people saw them? So I don't know exactly how to overcome that contradiction.
Right, because now you have your work ahead of you, because now you have to show that everybody, and we're talking thousands of people at this point in Washington, in Pennsylvania, in New York, right? Thousands of people, all regular walks of life, average Joes, either have to be lying, forced to say that under threat of death, or they're all in on the plot. If they're all in on the plot, well, then now you have to prove that every single body who saw the plane is in on the plot. Good luck. If everybody was coerced, then that would mean for 21 years, one agent from some whatever intelligence operation or part of the Illuminati or New World Order has to follow that person for the rest of his life so that he goes along and doesn't say what actually really happened to anyone. Good luck with that. They're all lying. But you're not lying. You weren't there. So that means you're not lying. Everybody that was there, they're lying. But good luck with that one.
Laurent, one thing you could point to is that there were all sorts of people after the Pentagon claiming they saw a plane. People will claim all sorts of crazy things.
Oh, yeah. Hey, listen, I agree with you, Bonnie. This is great. Yeah, people will say all sorts of crazy things, like what you guys are doing right now. See, isn't that something? What a view that they have, right? They're not the crazy ones. The people who saw the planes, well, they're the nut jobs. They're the crazy ones. I mean, what a revelation by Bonnie Faulkner here. We're not nuts. They are. That's why I use this picture, because they're not nuts, right? That's the antithesis of Jack Nicholson's character, right? He's not crazy. The outside world, now they're nuts.
Yeah, that's what I would tend to do. I would tend to question, and that's what Ace Baker explains in his wonderful film called
Ace Baker's wonderful film, right? He basically thinks all the planes were CGI. You don't ever hear of anything from Ace Baker anymore. Barbara Honegger's on her way out. She's irrelevant, actually. All these people, the no-planers, like Jason Burmis, Barbara Honegger, Richard Gage, Rebecca Roth, Judy Wood, Jim Fetzer, and Thierry Mason, pilots for 9/11 Truth, all six of them. Citizens Investigation Team, they're probably doped out in Mission Viejo, California. Haven't been relevant in 15 years. Because if you keep repeating yourself and you don't learn anything new, you don't share anything new, well, guess what? You become boring. Yeah, we'll give you about 3 or 4 years. But we don't hear of you anymore. Christopher Bowling, for example, he's a no-player, right? So he was a hot item for a couple of years between 2012 to 2017, right? He was number one, like top, number one, number two most popular fringe conspiracy theorist. Now, where is he? You don't hear nothing because he keeps repeating himself. Doesn't learn anything new. Doesn't share anything new. Why? Because he only looks at information that agrees with his worldview. Old information, which is misinformation. Repeating what he heard from other people, not going by the evidence. Whether it's classified, declassified, not going to learn anything new.
Called the Great American Psy Opera, where in the last 3 chapters, it's absolutely fantastic film. In the last 3 chapters, he develops this theory that there were no planes hit the Twin Towers at all. And he explained, well, how come some people say they saw the plane? Well, if you see something in reality and then you go back home and you watch your television and you see a plane, you quickly become convinced that you should have seen the plane. So you might have seen the plane, and then, little by little, you end up, after watching the scene on television again and again and again, you end up believing, well, surely you saw the plane.
Well, yeah, because if you were there to see it personally, and you see it on TV, it just reinforces that what you saw, right? This is what I mean. Well, like you're trying to make sense of the unsensible. You're not doing a very good job of it.
That's a possibility. I think that's a likely possibility.
Well, also, Laurent, what came to my mind was if there was no plane at the Pentagon, which I don't think there was, and there was no plane that buried itself at Shanksville, well, then that begs the question about the Twin Towers. If they weren't using planes in the other 2 events, well, then that calls the whole thing into question, in addition to the fact that using real planes brings in an element of uncertainty and risk.
Absolutely,
that couldn't be tolerated, I wouldn't think.
Well, yeah, many pilots have said, it was impossible to hit those towers at the speed that the planes were.
Only pilots for 9/11 truth are saying this. American Airlines ain't saying it. United Airlines ain't saying it. Delta Airlines ain't saying it. JetBlue ain't saying it. No major airline company is saying it. Only the fringe aspects of the truth movement are saying this. Nobody else. Nobody. No pilot that's not involved with the fringe aspects of 9/11 is saying this. No, nobody's saying this. So, yeah. All right.
Were flying. Well, it would have been impossible for a jetliner to fly at those speeds, but even with any kind of plane.
No, actually, no. It's not recommended. Right? It's not recommended. Of course not. It's dangerous. Obviously, right? But they can fly past their Mach limit. Was it 2.5, I think? I think the 757-200 and the 222 series can go up to 630 miles an hour, 650 miles an hour. I think the fastest any plane was going was 93, and that was 536. 77 was 530. Flight 11 was about 525. And 175 was, I think, a little bit faster than 11. And 175 actually almost missed South Tower. That's why it hit on a bank. Southeast Bank.
And, I remember actually the Egyptian president at the time was Mubarak. His name was, I don't know if you remember. He was kind of a victim of a coup just a few years later, and he was already a little bit sick in 2001. But he made this remark. He was a pilot. He was an army pilot originally. And he said there's no way that even a trained pilot could have, at that speed, flown any kind of plane into the Twin Towers.
When I heard this, I actually looked up went looking for this statement by Hosni Mubarak, and wouldn't you believe it? Nothing came up. I'm not surprised. When you make stuff up, you're hoping that the audience you're reaching doesn't look up anything you're saying because they already agree with you. They trust you. That's why you have a select audience. Well, you have people like me who basically do take notes on what certain people say, and I research certain statements made by people like you, just to make sure that you're not lying. Well, I didn't find this statement by Hosni Mubarak, and I spent about 20 minutes.
You know, I mean, the chances to hit the towers are very low. So just as you said, you know,
The Twin Towers width is 200 feet wide. A Boeing 757-200 series is 126 feet wide. So no, it wouldn't be impossible to hit. You know, it doesn't. Let's just. I want to say something. It doesn't take an expert to crash a plane. That's why these guys weren't, training to be pilots. You know, I hear this counter argument. Well, Hani Hanjour was a piss poor pilot. So what? Most of all four of the planes were on autopilot anyway. They only disengaged when they got near the target.
It would not make sense for the perpetrators to bet on that chance.
I'm speaking with author, researcher, and journalist
That's
Laurent.
a lot. You know, I could probably end it right there, but let's go just a little bit more. And
use real planes. If we suppose they had managed to hit the towers with a drone, or it doesn't matter what kind of plane, then of course most of the plane, or at least part of the plane, would have bounced against the tower, and all the pieces would have dropped in the street.
imagine believing that. Meanwhile, the plane is going, like I said, 530 miles an hour, forward momentum, with near 80,000 pounds of fuel. Right? Like I said, I'm not even counting whatever the plane, how much it weighs without the fuel. I don't know how much it weighs. Was it 65,000 pounds? Let's say approximately 130,000 pounds. That's what, in other words, it should have done this. It should have done this. That's what it should have done. Either this guy's trolling or he is really just ignorant about physics. Worse than me.
And all those pieces would have been picked up and identified. And then obviously, if there were not the American airline planes or United Airline planes that we were told there were, then that would have become apparent. So it was necessary that they fake the pictures so that the whole plane must disappear inside the tower.
Wow, imagine believing that in order to trick the public, we have to take out the planes, right? And just implement the planes in the TV or on video screen. Everybody who took a camera, we have to take those pictures and implement the plane in the picture. Meanwhile, everybody who's out in the street at this point didn't see 175. They're all lying or manipulating. And somehow this makes more sense than the official narrative. There's a grown man saying this, by the way. A grown man. And you wonder why the public has a negative view of the 9/11 Truth Movement. And you wonder why the Truth Movement is dying. Why there's only 6 people at Ground Zero this year. 6, 7. You're not growing. Because you allow people like this to represent you. And you didn't do anything about it.
And also for another reason. It's only if the plane disappears inside the tower that they can claim that the plane crash destroyed all those columns inside the tower, which caused the collapse. There's no way, if real planes were used, that the plane could have penetrated inside the tower, like we saw on these cartoon videos, and therefore there would have been no way to explain that the planes had caused the towers to collapse. So there's all kinds of reasons why I don't believe planes hit the towers. I feel it's just physically impossible.
Well, in addition, what about the steel lattice work that surrounded the towers?
What do you mean?
It wasn't only steel columns in the middle of the Twin Towers. The Twin Towers on the outside were covered with steel lattice work, right?
Yeah.
No, that's not entirely accurate. So yes, there's a skeletal column, steel lattice column. Then you have the cladding that's protecting the steel, right? So, but what makes you think that a plane, obviously weighing much more than the steel at this point, with the speed and momentum it's going, is it going to cut the steel in half? I mean, water pressure at a high enough acceleration can cut rocks. It also could cut steel. I don't think you understand like the real basics of physics. And the reason why you can't is some of these questions basically have to be answered with a very primitive and rudimentary understanding of what physics is. But because you don't even have that, you basically just make up physics.
The Twin Towers are based on two grids. One core grid inside where the elevators are, and they entered through 8 floors on the outside and the horizontal floors. It's just, you don't need to be an engineer. I mean, Donald Trump, we had that in our film. You remember on the very day he said that's completely impossible, and he knows a lot about skyscrapers. He's a specialist of skyscrapers, so he was absolutely affirmative that it was impossible. So he suggested a theory that many people came to believe, but I don't think it really makes sense. He said there must have been bombs at the same time as the plane entered. In other words, bombs must have made a hole so that the plane could penetrate the tower. It's like the bombs must have...
Why would you need a bomb? The plane is essentially a bomb at this point. It's carrying 11,000 pounds of fuel. It's a bomb.
Open the doors so that the plane could, which doesn't really make sense either, because the plane would have to enter perfectly where the bombs had been. We would have to suppose that the
it's
plane.
Funny because you're making fun of Donald Trump's position. Meanwhile, your position is even more ludicrous than his.
And with incredible precision to enter exactly, to slip, into the hole made by the bombs. But some people still believe that that's the solution, and it's obviously not. But
neither is yours.
Yeah, please go ahead, because I interrupted you. You were going to go on about the planes.
Well, it's so complicated. I can go on and on, but I feel I have to mention one. Interesting study made by Richard Hall, Hall. He made a very impressive study of all the videos where we see the plane crashing or approaching the South Tower, and he found about 53 of them, I think. And some of them he could not use, so he used about 20 or I think 16, I'm not sure. And all these 16 videos, he used a program to calculate the trajectory of the plane in all those videos, because it looks like those trajectories are not consistent. It looks like from one video.
Yeah, because what happens is that you have different video angles. So not every trajectory is going to be the same. However, the trajectory of the plane is the same, but the angle is different. I'm going to stop it right here because I can't go any further with this. And this is just, it's not even like a serious debate. This is comedy at this point. And so we can just assert that Laurent Guyenot shouldn't be taken seriously as a researcher for 9/11. But this is what makes up the majority of discourse in the 9/11 truth movement today, unfortunately. So have a good night, guys. I'll see you in the next video.